So very much, Tom. We'll be meeting first Monday. Yeah. It was open, second Thursday, third Thursday. Okay. All right. Okay.
For what, the Pope?
Yeah.
Should have brought more Cokes. Forget the book.
Well, what?
Forget the
That's on
Coke Street.
paper.
Should have brought more Diet Coke.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's what we needed, all to be jacked. Yeah. Thank you, Kyle.
I gotta promote, member Shirley.
Okay. Are we good?
Kyle, I'm unmuted. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, I may mute my computer.
It's now 6:01 PM, Monday, June 23rd, 2025. This is the Bel Air Beach City Council work session. We'll just go ahead and call the roll. Kathy?
Councilmember Frank Bankert.
Present.
Councilmember Kimberly Shaw Elliott.
Present.
Councilmember Todd Harper. Councilmember Jody Shirley.
Here.
Councilmember Anders Wellings. Vice Mayor Lloyd Roberts.
Here.
Mayor Dave Gaddis.
Here.
City Manager Kyle Riefler.
Here.
City Attorney Tom Trask.
Here. Thank you, Kathy. Looks like we just made it. All right. Let's rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just noticed I did that backwards. That works anyway. All right, so we are on item number 1, which is a presentation and discussion of the 9th Street Pump Project by Gemini Engineering. Take it away, Gemini.
Hello, can you hear me? This one always. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us again, council members. Today, we are continuing our discussion about the stormwater pump design. It's Barbara McGill, Gemini Engineering. We are located at 360 Central Avenue, Suite 1020, St. Petersburg. I'm just going to follow up today. In the questions and concerns about the capacity of the pump that we were installing, the different considerations that took us to where we are today. So based on that, you have had some time to have some questions for us today. But if it's okay with to just
Council, I'm going to ask each of you to hold your questions until the very end of the presentation and just jot down whatever questions you may have, and they may possibly be answered before we get to the end of the meeting. All right.
To help support, I don't to you for to put together a fact sheet, kind of summarizing everything so that hopefully could be a little visual. So share with the residents. Since it's summarized the entire project here. As I mentioned, we so we have an idea. We have been on how it will look once the pump is installed. So council members were kind of to send us different pictures, photos, and so actual rainfall events that the city experienced, actual flooding that was observed in these actually and 9th Street. So based on that, we were able to put down like a lot together. Um, you guys are not seeing my screen. I apologize for that. Let me see.
Excuse me, this is Jody Shirley. Can you speak into the microphone? Because I'm hearing every other word, maybe.
Okay. And
Councilmember Shirley, were you able to hear that last comment?
No,
so
I can hear Dave loud and clear, but I cannot hear the speaker.
and
Swap, hang tight.
A longer wire.
the microphone always gets me.
Take that one.
Yeah, that's what I said.
You know, I think that one's more clear anyway.
Do you want to?
Well, I've heard complaints that certain people couldn't be heard, and there must be something with that, the way that that one's wired into the system. Something's different about it.
Do we need to turn this one off?
Test. Yeah, turn it off.
How do I turn it off?
All right, let's give this one a test.
Okay.
I don't know, it's my ear.
And you hear me now?
Councilmember Shirley?
Hello?
I'm still getting like just bits and pieces of words. I'm not hearing, I don't know what's happening, if it's just she's not speaking clearly into it. Maybe just get closer.
He's coming in loud and.
Right.
Can I try the microphone? I don't know if I will be the better.
How does it, did that help?
Was there something being said? It just sounded like mumbling. I don't know how our residents hear what's going on.
How about a phone? You just put a phone up there.
Yeah. I can call her on my.
Yeah, let's try, phoning a
Is
friend.
she in the room?
You want to type, and, City Manager Rupert is going to give you a call. We'll see if this works any better.
I do think the microphone you have in front of you now
This one?
is more clear
Hello?
for me to hear.
Not clear for you,
the other
okay.
one.
Do I need to
Hello?
put it this close for you guys to hear me?
It's more clear than the other one.
Okay.
How's that? Yeah, so that's better.
Okay.
But there's something else probably that's affecting.
And I think I need to put it closer to my mouth also.
Here and see if you can hear it better this way. Try it. Okay, say something.
City of Venice Beach, 9th Street Stormwater Pump Station.
Can you hear it? Okay, there?
No, I mean.
Can you put it right?
Don't you put the phone on the stand?
Podium.
You on the phone right next to her. It's a bar run.
If that doesn't work,
This should work.
something wrong with your
Let me
ears.
turn here. Okay.
That doesn't work. We'll just get it.
Beach
We'll just
Street
drive there.
Stormwater Pump Station design.
Gotcha.
Okay, we're.
Beautiful.
We're making progress.
What I just said, so Councilmember Jody, get the full background. I just introduced myself, once again, Barbara Noguera with Gemini Engineering and Science. And today we're doing the follow-up from the previous meeting. There were several questions and concerns of the analysis that was done on the capacity of the pump that we were proposing. So based on that, we put a technical memorandum together that was hopefully distributed to all council members. And today, we also provided an additional fact sheet summarizing that memorandum, and that we hope that can help summarize key items that could be distributed between council members and also the residents in case they have any sort of questions. So what I would like to do right now is go over the results of this memorandum. As I mentioned, we received a lot of photos and videos of different storms that the city has experienced, and that is what we're using as a gauge to determine the effectiveness of these pumps that we are planning on installed in the city. Of the several events that can you guys see my screen? Yeah, okay. Of the several events and photos that we received, we picked the two more significant. One was the August 30th of 2023. Let me close this out and see if that's better. Okay. What can be observed on the screen is on the dark blue side, does the storm, the level of flooding that was observed at the city at 9 a.m. that day. In case that the pump would have been installed for this specific event, which was significant because it not only included the rainfall, this was Hurricane Idalia. It was not only the rainfall, you were also dealing with the other problem that is in the experience of the city, that is a high tide. So with a pump, this pump or any other pump, the extent of the flooding would have been the same. What would have changed is the duration. Since the pump was not installed based on our model, the duration of this flooding was about 14 hours of roadway, like underwater. If the pump would have been installed and in service, the duration is reduced to about 9.8 hours. So you see about like 6 hours, like 5 hours difference between having the pump and not having the pump installed. Again, the flooding extent the same, but we are allowing the water to leave the street sooner. The other event that we looked at was the April 11th, 2024. This event was more of like your typical storm. And this is what we have. This type of event represent about 1 inch of rainfall, which is what we have mentioned before, like what we are expecting to see more often at the city. So they that this rainfall impacted the city, as can be appreciated on the dark blue side. Let me move my cursor. We have about 6 inches, like half a foot of flooding on the street. If the pump would have been already in service, the stormwater system would have been able to keep that water into the system. So the inlets would have not overflowed. To look into an even more extreme event, what we did is that we increased or like doubled, we increased the rainfall amount of that April 11th event. So it went from 1 inches to 1.6 inches of rainfall. So the left side could be seen on the dark blue, that is how the street would have looked like if the pump would have not been installed. If the pump is not installed, if the pump is installed, you'll still see some water on the street, not as deep, and the amount of water on the roadway will not be as extensive as without the pump. Also, again, once you have the pump, the duration of this water on the roadway gets reduced significantly. Overall, what we have seen, what we can say about this project is that this is going to be a pilot project. There are many questions, there are many hopes on what can be addressed with this, but after consulting with the different communities, we consulted with Panama City Beach, we consulted with Orange County, Broward County, and St. John's County. Every community has a different experience with them. Some of them love them. They are key for maintaining their city's drives. Some of them, they see them as a necessity, like they don't have another option. They need them to get the water out of the roadway, but dealing with the maintenance and the keep up of the pumps is just a headache. And there's some that don't want to deal with them. They just simply allow private developers to install them, and they're regulated by the ordinance on like operation and maintenance. So what we expect with this project is that it will provide a solution that we're hoping provide a benefit, an overall benefit for the residents, and that they can see an improvement. But as with every pilot, the city will have to go through their own experience, and hopefully this pilot will help us fine-tune any details that could be hopefully applied for a larger project or a larger footprint for future projects in the city. Right now, that is all the information that we have, and we're open to any questions that you may have offered.
Let's go to Councilmember Shirley since she's on the phone.
Okay.
Councilmember Shirley, do you have any questions?
Not at the moment, no, I can't, no, thank you.
Okay, all right. Frank Bankert.
First of all, I want to thank you for your work, both of you. I mean, he was a tremendous help. When we had the one-on-one interviews, I guess, but the only thing I disagree with you on the Adalia assessment of 14 hours of water in the street. We had water in the street around 10:30 to 11 PM the night before. That water never left the street till at least 4 PM the following day. The breach came at 7 AM. The tide then receded around 9 AM. You could see the surge stop coming. You could actually see it going out, but we still had water from 9 AM to 4 PM. And I think a pump would have.
Since the day before, like it started at
Yeah,
9
yeah,
a.m. like a-
because if we didn't have any water in the street at 7 AM, you know what I'm saying? If there was a pump, we wouldn't have had water, in my opinion, in the street at 7 AM. Until it breached. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's really a lot of the challenges when you develop these numerical models.
I understand, yeah.
You have the rainfall, you have the tide information. I think for us, it's an invaluable tool. We're hoping to be close. That's the main thing. It's, we can simulate something very similar to what was observed. That may not be perfect,
Yeah.
but we have a tool to be able to evaluate these type of options when it comes to pumps. And so even though it's not perfect, it sounds like if we did put that, have all this additional data to really refine that model, it would show even more improvements. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm just saying it was hands-on experience of that, I saw and.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully, this
Yeah.
pump system will be able to handle what you've observed.
Yeah.
City Manager Reef, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to cover the two pump options and how like they would deal differently in each storm event. I tried to lay it out in a comparison table. So that at the top, you can follow, I made this one a little bigger. But this is the original pump design, it's the C308. That's the 1,600 gallons per minute pump. That was what the original design. Gemini Engineering designed the station and the plans we have currently to that size pump. And then their project estimate. Wrote the pump cost is 134,000. The project cost is right now at about 660,000 estimated. And each pump, the other option is the C312, and that's 2 times the pumping capacity. So it's 3,200 gallons. If you look at the price of the pump, it's about a $20,000 difference. But there's more that goes into it if we do decide to go with a larger pump, because it's going to need a larger well, possibly different energy demands, and it's going to require some more design work. So I wanted to make sure that we all understood that we're currently, where the plans have been developed to is for the 1,600 gallon original pump that was brought to us and presented by MWI, and that's where we started. But I also want to show that they did test in the models the larger pump, and when you look at these events, I tried to lay out how each of those pump, how they function in the model. If you go to the 2024 event, which was more of the average rainfall, both pumps handled it very well, kept the water on the road. Then we talk about the 2023 event, which was Adalia, and they talk about the seawall breach. The measurement they got in their unit was 27.6 inches. And both pumps in that situation reached that level, but the difference is the duration time that the water stayed. So the larger pump obviously was pumping more water over time and cleared it out faster. That reflects the duration difference of 4.3 hours between the pumps. And then the 2 events that their natural events, they were similar. So it was 1.5 times the 2024 event, and then 2 times the 2025 event. And that actually did run the numbers for no pump at all. So we did get the level of inches that was anticipated from those events. And then you can see how that smaller pump would perform on the 1.5 and the 2. We're going about 6 inches of water. at the inlet, and 2 times of that rainfall in 2024, we're seeing about 10.2 inches. And you got a larger pump for both of these events, and you'll see that the larger pump covered that 1.5 time event, but there was still 4 inches of water on the 2 times 24 event. So it's probably an amount of rain that it's probably exceeding what I would expect in your average summer storm to go, because that was a top 3 rain event for the actual amount of water that was dumped in a short period of time, and they doubled that. So it's a very large, lot of rain at once. So I just wanted to kind of cover those two, because either, show you what the original, and then show you the next step up of what we could get by going with a larger pump and what the costs are involved with that.
If I may, just so the engineer's opinion of probable cost was performed for the 1,600 gallons per minute pump. The larger pump, very estimated. And just based on information that we have. So there's a lot of effort that we would have to do to nail down that cost. But for discussion purposes, that's why the additional cost for the pump is provided.
Would the well be the same size?
No, that is one of the things that we will need to look into because the pump is larger. So it's not only, if we want to go with a larger capacity, we also want to see what are the best options for the city. Maybe we don't necessarily have to get a larger pump. Maybe we get 2 smaller pumps that give you the overall capacity. So one maybe is just off the majority of time and is used as a backup, or we just get a large one. But if we get a large one, or if we decide to go with 2 pumps, we are going to need to look into the area again, look at the utilities that are around, and basically redesign what we have.
I see. And the outlet would be larger also.
Yes, most likely, yeah.
All right.
8 to 10 probably.
Right now we're at 8, so I'm thinking like it's probably like 10, 12, yeah.
Vice
So
Mayor Roberts.
so sorry, it's not only like changing the size of the pump, it's like basically re-evaluating
Okay,
everything that we have done so far.
that makes sense.
Sorry.
That accounts for the 40 hours of engineering time.
Yeah.
All right. Vice Mayor Roberts, did you have a
Yes,
question?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 4, so when I read through this, and I think you guys did a very good job with the document. I just want to make sure I put myself in the shoes of other citizens out there that may also be reading this and maybe not have as much background information that we have. So at the top of page 4, the second paragraph, and Kyle, I have a question for you involving this. It should be noted here that in some cases, tidal conditions alone without any associated rainfall can even produce similar street level impacts. This type of high tide flooding, also referred as sunny day flooding or king tide flooding, is becoming increasingly common in Florida's coastal communities. So my question is, in your opinion, if all of the check valves that are installed and that are going to be installed are improperly and functioning properly, as we would all want them to be, would we have that scenario ever be happening?
No, because it's sunny day flooding has tidal effects, and if a check valve is working properly, then you don't have it.
Right. So I just wanted to be clear on that, because people say, wow, that's still happening, and it's really not. We're going to have scenarios where maybe the maintenance wasn't perfect for a particular period of time, or we had some new erosion problem that occurred or something like that. But we can make that assumption, I believe, as far as this report is concerned, that if we have the check valves in and they're doing their job, then that would never be happening. We're not going to have salt water coming on the streets, because that's the job of the check valve, and you guys have done a great job of that. So I just want to make sure that we're all clear on that.
Unless it's a seawall breach.
Right. Or, yeah, and that would be, that probably wouldn't, would that be at any time on a normal tidal event, or would it only be storm related?
It would have to be a higher than average, irregular event
Okay.
to breach a seawall.
Right.
Just from a tidal effect.
Because that just,
Does it ever happen with a king tide?
We see it come over the marina seawall on those tides. So it does wash all that into the fence. It just depends which seawall.
Okay.
Yeah, they start breaching.
It's gotten close even out here. When you have a 3.3 tide or 3.7 tide, I mean, that's about That's
But
what
it hasn't breached yet.
it's
It hasn't
just,
come-
it's flopping, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The following paragraph, this background context helps explain why the city continues to experience frequent recurring water accumulation in roadways. Is frequent the right word, you think there? I don't think we have frequent issues. We have several in a year. I think frequent is an overstatement of road flooding. I'm just asking, do you think that's true or false?
It's kind of, it depends on who you ask.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Ask Kim and I.
Yeah.
I would say it's frequent and it's certainly recurrent.
So what do you think the definition of frequent would be? 50% of the days of the year?
In the summer, if it rains, it's gonna, and at high tide, it's gonna,
Right. So if you had to,
On our street yesterday.
yeah.
I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of citizens and the readers. Wow, this frequently our roads are flooding down there. And I don't think that's the case.
It's a correlation of if that check valve is closed and it rains hard enough, and that's
Yeah.
all it takes.
Right. No, and we get that. Yeah.
And
That's
it's
what-
gonna happen currently now because there is no check valve. So every time that tide reaches a level that it comes out the drain, they're gonna see it until we
Right.
get those check valves.
So, and this was really helpful, the location of all the outfalls and the location of the check valves. So at this point in time, do we feel like we need any more check valves installed in our city that would help potential flooding situations in the roads? Or are we good?
Right now, I think the next that could use it would be the outfall that runs at the intersection of Hibiscus and Morgan Drive. And then it runs to the east and then cuts out in between the properties between Hibiscus and Bay Shore.
Mhm.
And it exits the seawall. That's probably the next one that higher tides will produce the water coming out of the
Back.
drains. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So, and personally, I think that we're seeing the water come a little higher. And I think that we're gonna kind of see areas that are gonna need check valves as time goes on.
Right. Right. If we have the increase and stuff. Page 8, just a little minor deal. Page 8, it says observations along 2nd, 4th, and 19th. And I know we meant to have 9th there probably, right?
Where is it?
Page 8, the pictures,
Oh, yes, good catch.
and it says 19th, and I live on 20th, so I know that's never good. So,
You're lucky you're one street high.
yeah, so, yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that somebody didn't get confused about that. But I think that's a big part of I think the check valves have been a phenomenal success with respect to, because that was the bigger problem, like, I think just before I came to Bel Air Beach, was the water backflowing onto the street with the salt water, which is much more corrosive. You know, and if it gets on the grass, it kills your grass. If we get fresh water on the grass because the water can't leave because it's a high tide, that's not going to kill your grass because it's raining already and that's water and that's fresh water and it doesn't bother anything. If it sits there for 14 hours, you know, it may have some detrimental impact on the grass or your plants or something like that. So again, I think that's a big tool that we have, are the check valves with regards to, and that's fairly cost effective to make sure we have all the check valves we need, they're functioning properly, they're maintained properly, and they're doing everything that you guys want them to do. And I think you guys do a great job of that. I think that alleviates a lot of the problems that we see if we don't have that. You know, if we don't have that. So if we have salt water that's working its way up for whatever reason and commingling with the fresh water from the rain, and the salt water is on the street and it's getting on the grass and plants, that's not a good thing. But I don't think that happens very often anymore now. I think the check valves are doing their job, which is good. And we already know that if we have a decent rain event and a high tide, that water on the street has nowhere to go. And I have talked to people that said, because I know there was some language in here about how long it sits, and I've had citizens tell me that you know, as soon as the rain stops and the tide starts to go down, they said the catch basins are like funnels. where they can actually hear it, where that water is just falling tail out of the pipes and out to the intercoastal.
You can actually go on the tide report,
Mhm.
okay, and watch the clock at 2.8, and you'll start seeing the water go down.
Yeah.
And if there's like, let's say a foot of water in the street where it's hit the ground,
Right?
because the two drains will, the one drain goes into the other drain. When it hits about 2.4, like you're saying, you'll see the whirlpool.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I mean, it,
Going.
yeah, it's going,
Yeah,
yeah, but it has to get to that 2.4, you know,
Sure.
yeah.
sure. And that's gonna vary from time to time with respect to how long it's gonna take to get to the high tide level it was down to that magic number.
And the only problem,
Yeah.
not to interrupt you, the only problem is with the check valve, like you said, they're great unless it rains heavy, and then they do hold that water back until that 2.8, where it used to be starting to flow around 3 foot, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Because you didn't have that back pressure, so there are plus and minuses with everything.
Yeah.
All
Well, I
right,
think
gentlemen,
Okay.
let me reel you back in a little bit. We're talking about check valves now. And can you kind of wrap it up?
Sure.
What's your point?
Yeah, my point is that that's part of the equation. The success of the check valves is a big part of the equation, in my opinion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Shaw Elliott, did you have a question?
You got there. My first, just a question for our
Make sure You
city.
get kind of close to that.
First is a question for our city manager, and if you could refresh me on where we are, what is the plan for the check valves that need to be replaced? Excuse me, or have been
They need-
removed
they need
because
to
of
go.
construction.
Okay, can you give an explanation of where we're at when working through this?
Right now, we're working with the contractor and also the provider of the CIPP, like the curing place that was installed in the pipes. There have been concerns about the way the liner was installed. So what we have done is contacted directly to the providers of the liner. There are two companies, NTC and United Felts. We already got feedback from one of those companies, and they suggested remediation to some of the wrinkles that exist within the pipes now. Because unfortunately, due to those wrinkles, reinstalling the existing, like, or the previous check valve, it is basically impossible. Like, the wrinkles take a few inches out of the overall opening of the pipe. So some of the wrinkles, based on their standards, they're fine. They will not affect the lifespan of the liner that was installed, but we are dealing with remediation at the end of the pipes for some of it to be able to reinstall the check valve. So we have the feedback from one of the providers. We are continuously trying to get the feedback from the other provider, and once they give us their feedback, we can go back to the city contractor, which is going to be Harbor, for them to fix the issues through their sub-consultant, who were the ones that installed the liner, and being able to reinstall the check valve. But right now, that's what we're trying to work with them to figure out, because we want to make sure that the final product that the city gets, especially because of these liners, they're gonna be there for a very long time, that they meet the standards at a minimum from the providers that fabricate these liners.
So are people cooperating and trying to resolve this?
Yeah, we actually had a meeting like a month probably ago with the contractor and with Harbor Contracting and their subcontractor on basically going over of what was done. And after that, they provided a letter saying that the liner was fine. And Gemini went ahead and contracted those providers just to make sure that we also get the same feedback. So that's where we are right now. We already got the feedback from one of the providers. We're just waiting for the second one. And once that is finalized, we hope that that meeting will be held this week. We will basically summarize it in a letter for a Harbor contractor to fix the areas that is recommended to be fixed, and then reinstall the check valve.
So assuming that all things go well, what is the timeline and when might those replacements be made?
We are hoping that it's shortly after we get back with Harbor.
So we're still in the data gathering stage, and we understand the GC of emergency situation. But so we are collecting as much information as we can, and the timing is going to be based on Harbors and how they want to handle their subcontractor. And because we are presenting them, it's a very delicate situation, obviously. We are presenting them, trying to facilitate the facts that they receive. And because it's quite a few gray areas, but in terms of final construction schedule, it's really going to be in Harbor's hands to see what they can do to mediate it.
I think we have here a situation where we're clearly not at fault. Somebody's at fault. And someone has not done things to standards. And it seems like it's the installer, but I'll let someone else determine that. But it seems as though we had a good product and somebody messed up as they put it in. So we need to pursue this. And I think our city pretty well looks at a timeline by storm seasons. And we've had 2 storm seasons now where we've been largely unprotected, and we don't want to go through another one. And so I would ask that our attorney get involved, that you're aware that we move this fast, that we keep the pressure up on this, because if this just dwindles away or just keeps crawling, then the front line of our protection won't be there when we need it again next year. And here we are sitting here now without it.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think this is critical, and I think you guys have, talked a long time, but we need to move on this. And again, I think it's pretty clear we're not liable, so somebody is, so we gotta figure that out and push.
So do we fix the situation now and then go after them legally? You know what I'm saying? Because
I mean, that's another choice.
we're days now into another season.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I think that's another choice,
Yeah.
whether we're gonna front the money and
then
then go after them for
legal.
reimbursement.
Yeah.
But Tom, if we can have your analysis on this, and I think we need to move really quickly on this. It's been a long time. And again, that's our frontline protection.
City Manager Riefler, would you like to comment? Yes.
I understand where it's coming from, and I've been trying to press this every week, and Gemini knows that I'm hearing a lot of communication. I want to try to take care of it within the project, but I do understand the urgency. I'd like to know what the options are if we have to press forward to do it some other way. Because I don't like spending the extra money, but at the same time, I do understand the importance of getting those valves back in.
And who would you say is ultimately responsible for the defective check valve?
For the lining not being installed, I guess the subcontractor installed the lining. Because they left us with abnormalities of the valve, like CIPP, where it's just not round, it's misshaped. And you can't get the valve in. So in talking with the manufacturer, we learned there were some options out there that for the product that they can cut and patch and modify. And that's part of the process. We're trying to understand from the manufacturer what can be done, because when we first had our meeting, we kind of got the, that's how it is and there's not much you can do. But we definitely need something done.
Now, did we employ the subcontractor? Because I think subcontractor means that they work for a contractor.
Yeah, so it falls back onto Harbor.
Okay, all right.
They
So
own the contract.
ultimately, it's Harbor that's
Yes.
responsible. Okay. All right. So, yeah. And so what's the progress at this moment? What are they saying?
So correct me if I'm wrong, we're gonna have set up a meeting for the other manufacturers so we can get their input on everything with their product. And then we're gonna summarize in a report, and then deliver that, basically calling them out at that point with all the information. We're hoping that's gonna be next week, right? If we can get the meeting in this week and.
Yeah, we are making pressure to the other provider to, like, we have been emailing them since we received the letter. It's just, it looks like it has been a scheduling problem to get access to them, but we're following up also this week just to make sure that whenever they're available, just to jump on a call. We also provided with all the photos and report that we put together for the city to provide to Harbor. So they have all the information already. It's not that we're gonna meet and then they're gonna get photos or videos. No, they already have all the information. So once we meet, we're expecting that they provide us the answers the same way that the other provider did.
All right.
And I appreciate that everybody has been trying to work, you know, non-confrontationally and trying to reach an amicable solution. But I think we need good counsel behind the scenes, even if you continue to try to negotiate, and we need to do it on a short schedule to just then really push hard for a legal solution at that point. But all of it with the help of legal advice, because this is a liability issue and it's a big one.
I agree.
All right, so my other comments are these. One is, thank you very much for your improved report, for the attention you've given me and your responsiveness to my comments. I really appreciate it. It's a much better report, and we appreciate the analysis that went into this that wasn't there before. So I think that all that's very helpful. And my comment regarding the report also relates to timeline. So again, people measure the world by storm seasons. And if we're looking at 18 months to get a solution, we're past another season. So what can we do to accelerate the timeline, and what can we do to have some protection for next year?
For schedule wise, yes, we've already estimated the projections on the permitting as well as the construction side of things, so it will be past the season. But in the interim, there's, you know, possibly other options. There are portable pumps available as well. So instead of the constructed pump, there could be, if necessary, evaluation of portable pumps for key areas to serve something to a similar purpose during certain key, you know, if we see heavy rainfall coming, or if there's any kind of predictions or forecasts, that is an option.
So what's the scope of the engagement, and how do we keep this rolling forward and with regular reporting?
Our scope,
Yes.
we are we are definitely out of beyond. At this point, we are open to whatever we need to do to continue this on for the city. And if it means providing other alternatives as Band-Aids to the actual permitting and construction, we can revisit that on our dime to provide the city some options.
And my recommendation is that we get regular, very thorough reporting on this, and that we just keep pushing and moving this as fast as we can.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Shirley, do you have any comments or questions?
Dave, I'm driving in pretty bad weather. I was trying to get to the meeting and I've gotten, caught up in the storm. I think, one thing I just want to say to kind of precaution is that, we had these chuck valves in place way before we did liners. So the conversation, as I heard it, because I could only hear about every other word that was being said, was that there was some indication that we might have a litigation case. And I just want to forewarn everyone that these liners came in after check valves were already purchased and installed. So that's, don't get the cart before the horse when we start talking about things like that. We need to have all the facts. And I agree with trying some temporary pumps before we start going down the road of paying to have designs for pumps in a permanent situation. So that would be all I have to say.
And those temporary pumps, they would probably still require the wells, is that right?
Usually not, but they would require some other, they're louder and they're portable. They may not have enough horsepower, but they would allow for, some
Kind of a trial run, just to see. I believe that the pumps, the permanent pumps would work. as far as to what level, if we don't have something comparable to what we're installing, it's not a real world scenario. It's not really a fair test, because it sounds like if we do a temporary pump, we're setting up for failure. And so I disagree with going that route, just because I don't want to see this project fail. I want to see it move forward. So it looks to me like the question at hand right now is, do we do no pump? Do we do the 1,600 gallon per minute pump, or the 3,200 gallon per minute pump as a pilot program for Bel Air Beach? And then we whatever we decide on, we move forward with it. Councilmember Shirley, I heard you loud and clear, but I would like for you to tell me what if only you were making this decision, what would you do?
I would test to see if what's being proposed would work in a temporary setup. Because I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm driving. I can't see what exactly was proposed on pricing. But my assumption was, and what I'd heard previously, was that we have a $600,000 potential purchase for a pump that may or may not work. And I don't see any point in making an investment like that if we don't know it's going to work.
All right. Frank Bankert.
Just talking to residents on, actually, I guess from 14th Street down. And I brought this up at the last work session. Do we invest in 9th Street now that 9th Street's done? Or do we do I brought this up to the engineer about a study of doing a overflow pipe with 2 discharges, 5th Street, 1st Street. And you said that would probably put this whole thing back another year.
Yes, that it's not just the redesign of the pump, but then it's the collection as well to get the rest of the area.
And the other thing was, my impression was we had about a 4-foot, 5-foot drop from 9th Street to 1st Street. That's only about 1.5 feet.
Quarter of a foot, yes.
So you need about 1/4 of an inch for every foot, or 1%. You would need about a foot for every 100 to 150 feet of drop. And so we wouldn't have that gravity flow. We would have to have a mechanical flow. So I'm gonna rely on you, Mr. Mayor, and giving us guidance on where we should go. Because I don't want to be a fly in the ointment and saying, let's put this on hold.
Right.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go through your guidance on this whole thing. I hate to do that to you, but yeah.
No worries. I'm used to being put on the spot. Kim, what are your thoughts?
What's the recommendation of our experts?
Well, the genesis of where we are was to relieve and redefine what nuisance flooding is. That hasn't changed the definition. So if we are intending to address these nuisance flooding events, the pumps will work. It's not a question of will it work or not. It's what it is right now is a question of, if we're going to run with this pilot project, do we want to scale it up more right now? Or do we want to go with what we had originally designed? It's again, not a question of whether it will work. It will serve a purpose. It will be a benefit. Do you want to spend money on, or, with the $600,000+, or do we bump it up for a larger pump? And you can play this game where you can continue to bump it up as well. There's a physical limit just based on, availability of land and how we get the water out. But that's where we're kind of in a spiral where, it will work. How long, how much more do we need to assess the variations, the other variables in terms of pump size and infrastructure?
Okay, so I have a question for you. All right, so let's say we do the smaller pump as a pilot, and we see that it's beneficial, but we also know that we have other streets going south that also have problems. The way that our land is laid out, I understand that there's basins but is there a point to where the basins merge together? Like if we did a pilot pump here and we see it's beneficial and we decide to go down to the next street and then we put in another one, would they work in conjunction and help to drain one another?
In larger storm events, that's what's been happening on 8th and 9th Street right now, is in the larger events. I think one of the ones that we evaluated, there was overflow from the other streets.
Yep.
So will they work in combination, unison? Yes, additional pumps. In terms of scaling, that's one of the challenges is once we go with a pump, whichever one it is, we're still looking at scaling the system, whether it's at that location or somewhere else, but they will all work in unison because there is so much overflow across the system.
Okay, all right. Back to you, Kim.
Based on all of that, I think we've done our analysis. We have a report. We have a recommendation. We have a solution that we believe will work. It's not ideal, but it will work. So I would go with that.
Which is
Move ahead with the smaller pump.
with a smaller pump.
I disagree with the smaller pump because, correct me if I'm wrong, if we purchase the larger pump and we decide going forward, we might be able to do that overflow pipe, wouldn't that larger pump give us the centrifugal force to push that water more south?
Yes, sir. I mean, the larger pump will have higher capacity.
Yeah, and how much more is that?
200,000.
200,000?
Oh, the product, yeah.
Yeah. You might be able to kill a couple streets with that $200,000.
If that would work,
Yeah.
and if it's not another year analysis, but
Well,
something
no.
that we can move
Yeah.
ahead with.
Yeah.
I mean, the analysis isn't necessary because we've already performed.
I'm sorry, I can't.
The analysis isn't necessary because we've already performed. What it is the design element. Where the effort that's been put into the design of it in terms of the wet well, the force main and all the other components, the power, that's what would have to be redone. So it's not a redesign of the calculations. It's
Now, it would cause delays in planning and beginning construction. However, we're at the mercy of waiting on this pump to arrive. Is that correct? That's the longest component of the entire project.
yes, sir.
Between once a pump is like the work order is signed, is between 32 to 34 weeks for the pump to be delivered.
Correct.
Yeah.
So if 40 hours of engineering time was added to the project, the final result is probably still the same just because the pump is the last thing to go in, correct? And that's the main component that we would be waiting on. So as far as it causing any delays, if we went with a larger pump, I don't really think it makes any difference. Vice Mayor Roberts.
Yeah, so a couple of questions for Kyle. So Kyle, if we walked up as far north as northern part of Bel Air Beach and we start walking south, where do we get to where we're seeing streets that are having similar issues like we're seeing on 9th Street and stuff? So are there any streets?
18th, it starts.
18th starts having,
Sunny day flooding without a valve. It was one of the worst.
because there's a valve there on 18th Street.
There currently is not. There was one in the inlet,
Okay,
because that outfall was never ready to have a valve. It needed to be modified.
Okay.
Because someone sleeved it for a seawall and it was a corrugated metal pipe that's all rusted and has issues.
and then from 18th, do all the other streets, 17th, 16th, 15th, 14th?
18th's bad and it has we feel that it was combination effect of like the
This-
sanitary issue.
Right,
17th improves, 16th, 15th. It's not until you get to 13th, 12th.
where it picks up.
Where you
yeah,
see it, and that's why that was one of the prioritized projects,
Right,
because it was one of the more sunny day flooding.
And they're missing the check valve.
They are.
so we'll make the assumption that when those check valves are back in, everything should be working properly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Improved dramatically.
Yeah, yep. So I am at this point in time not in favor of spending the $600 and something thousand for the pump system. I think the temporary portable pumps might be a good approach so that we can get some more impact data and see what's actually going through. I think it's too much money to spend. Well, that's why I asked that question about what streets in our city. I like to approach it from a bigger viewpoint to say, you know, it's a lot of money to spend of taxpayers' dollars. And if it's only impacting a small part of our city, I understand that if I lived there, I would not be thrilled with that fact. I think there's other options that we could look at, something similar to like happened with the underground utilities up there in the part of town where you live, Mr. Mayor. So everybody there paid for that. None of the city dollars were used for that. So,
Yeah, but you're talking aesthetics and we're talking safety.
well, I think it also, I mean, I can't talk for the people that live there. They also said they felt like it was an important thing to do regarding hurricanes because they wouldn't have any poles up there where they're going to lose power, things like that. So there is some safety involved with that, with the poles being blown down and the electrical lines, things like that. So that's just the way I feel at this point. And I never even, I think until just now, we talked about the potential of portable pumps. And they're not little things you walk around in your hands. These are big pumps. They're just portable. They're on skids and things like that. And you would put them in place and they can pump a lot of water. So we can take a look at that on a smaller cost scale to see how effective that is before we chunk out a lot of money.
Now you would have to man them pumps.
Sure.
Porta pumps. So who's,
Know when to put them out.
well, aesthetics is a big thing here. So you're gonna have a pump, you're gonna have a Sullivan pump sitting there. It's gonna probably be as long as this table and it's almost as wide, depending on if you're having a 6-inch discharge or a 10-inch discharge. Then you're gonna have to fire it up. Some of them have to be primed before you fire them up. And we have 2 city employees right now and
Two
one,
guys right now.
with one there with a wing busted. So how do we do that? I'll fire the pumps up, but
We'll try to make it work if we have a plan and we can use it in a way that we can learn.
And there's a cost, obviously, because you want to have the pumps there before the event, but maybe the event doesn't happen. So there's obviously some issues.
Right,
with
that could happen.
I mean, you could run them off a Sunbelt hurt for the season, I guess, but.
My thoughts are that we have made implications that we are going to solve a problem in that neighborhood. And I think the residents are expecting us to get a pump installed and turn it on and see what happens. It was supposed to be a pilot program. And if we do something temporary, we may not have the manpower whenever water comes in. There's all sorts of issues that could happen because you're already going to be underwater. Someone has to bring that equipment in, set it up, get it running. I think that if we take this to a vote at our next council meeting, I would happily vote for the 1,600 as originally designed as a test pilot program. And then we see how it fares and use that as a model going forward for the rest of the city.
Then I'll vote that way.
I'm sorry?
Then I'll vote that way, if that's what you're suggesting.
All right. So that's my recommendation. And I would like to see this come to a vote at our next meeting, if that's possible.
Yes.
Everybody good with that?
Very good.
And we'll see where the chips fall at our regular council meeting. Do we have any more discussion on this topic?
Say something?
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Fritz Will. I live on 905 Harbor Drive. I'm very much, of course, in favor of getting this pump installed. If we do not install a pump, we will not solve the problem. It will not go away, ever. I'm waiting now for over 5 years to get something done. The question is, are we going to have a small pump or a large pump? Right now, the pipe ends at my property and flows into the bay. It is possible to measure the flow of water coming from the street going that way. This way, we could find out how big the pump should be. It is 166 feet from the manhole cover to the wall. If we go this route to the creek, it's only 130 feet. So it's shorter. We don't need such a drop in the pipe. In regards to the valve, the valves will only really work if we have a pump. Otherwise, you will not have a pressure against the valve coming from the wall.
Thank you, sir.
So please do us a favor and have the pump installed. If we don't do anything, it will not solve the problem, period.
Thank you.
Look,
All right. Any other questions or comments on this topic? Councilmember Shirley? Well,
I was gonna die on Howard Franklin.
I drove my golf cart.
I just have to get my mind around it right now.
That's fine.
Thank
That's
you
fine.
for asking.
We're basically where we're at now is that I've asked Kyle to put it on the agenda for us to vote on. Which there was actually three options, which was do nothing or do a temporary something like that. The problem is that once the street is flooded, how do you get in there? How do you connect things up and get it's do we have the staff that's readily available to go and put a temporary pump in place so that we can watch this pump something out? So the other option was to go with a 1600, or the third option was to go with a 3200, which is $200,000 more. We all pretty much had slightly differing opinions, but I believe that we can get a majority vote one way or the other and put this question to bed and stop kicking the can down the road. And so that's going to be the options that we have. And just so you know where I stand, my recommendation is to go with a 1600. We've been discussing this for a long time. The people in this neighborhood believe that they're getting a solution. And wow, that's scary. They believe that we're going to do something, and I don't have the mindset to tell them that we're not doing it.
When it comes to the project cost, there's no budget for it. We've already had a bond sale for our stormwater plan that was in place. And I'm just concerned that while, yes, it's like any other major project, there's planning that takes place. Just because we're in the middle of another stormwater project doesn't mean we have an additional, I'm seeing $858,000 here. That's not available.
That's for the big pump.
The other one's 600 something, still a big number.
But the point being is, we're in the middle of budgeting, and yet we're talking about spending somewhere between 660 and 858, plus you gotta add some contingencies that's gonna drive the price up more. We're not being good stewards. We're not doing what we should be doing, and that's talking about the budget right now.
Yeah.
And how does this fit into our plan for the city? We have no plans. Because someone raises an issue, you can't solve it in a day. And this is, it's a problem. We've
had this storm plan that's been worked on for probably 10 or 12 years. This wasn't part of that plan. So we have to take a step back and go, if this is something we want to do, how do we make it happen? And it's not just because we have this emotion, we've got to do it now. We don't have the money to do it now.
Right.
So we just have to be sensible in the process. And even if we vote it in, doesn't mean we can pay for it.
And Vice Mayor Roberts made a suggestion of an assessment or a voluntary, like what we did on Belle Isle whenever we did the undergrounding. So that was another option, but yeah, I agree with you that funding is definitely an issue, and it's something that we'll be discussing during our next budget meeting. So.
And I sat in this room last year and asked about the budget for this. We talked about it and we felt that this was a project that was pending. And my understanding was that it was, if we decided to move ahead, it would be available. And we talked about it. So this is not anything new, and this is something that's been pending literally for years.
Well, you have to understand the current stormwater project. I think the initial design was probably done 12 or 15 years ago. It takes that long to get through.
And the
The
conditions
process.
are now different. Literally, the environmental conditions are now different.
It's still Florida. And it's still the same, I mean, we're still in the same spot that we were
And those
10 years
storms
ago.
are with more frequency and more intensity than they were 10 years ago.
It's cyclical. They'll come and they'll go.
We don't know.
Yes, I do know.
Kyle, would you address the budgeting issue? Would you tell me how you plan on funding this project?
Yeah, so we talked about it last, I think it was January of 2024. We were looking at our bond issue, we were looking at how, we were gonna fund this current project and how we're gonna pay back that loan we took out. We have money in reserves, we have money, surplus money that is going to reserves, but that was also prior to the storms, and we did spend a lot of money in it. We just recently got one of the larger, checks for the emergency debris removal, which was about 350,000, but we're still waiting on the next big one for the stuff that we did after Milton. That's closer to I think it's 400,000 or 500,000, but those are our two big ones. And we spent close to $1 million, but it's nice that we got one back, but we are running into sort of a cash flow situation with all the money that went out the hurricane. So the situation has changed, and just because we approved to go out the bid, say the next regular meeting, we can put it out the bid and find out what it truly would cost under the basic design. It doesn't mean we have to do anything with it. But at least we'll test the market to have an idea of what it will cost, because we don't know if 660 is correct. And it also gives us time to talk about strategic planning in the next budget workshop and build this into the budget. But we're up against a high urgency. I've gotten a lot of push from residents of wanting to see action. So just I know that's common, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of people that want to see action. So I am getting that feedback.
Right, and we're not authorizing the purchase. This is strictly just getting the bid.
Yeah, they'll finish the design. We'll put together a bid package and we can release it and we can see what comes in.
Okay, and where are we at right now on design, the budget for design?
Well, they've actually put in a lot more hours than we originally intended for the plan, and I thank them for that because they've done a lot. But I think they're sitting in a good spot right now for the original pump idea and design, and where they can finish it up.
All right, well, in that case, is everybody good with it, at least voting on putting it out for bid? Okay, and then that way it'll be a real sanity check for us, and now we'll know what our target is, and we'll see if it's actually possible to fund the thing once we look at budget and, of course, strategic planning. Does that satisfy you, Councilmember Shirley?
Absolutely.
All right, all right.
I do have a question, so I just want to make sure I understand. So if we put it out to bid and contractors, I don't know, 4 or 5, however many, put the effort and time and work on it and could turn in the bids, and then we say, well, this number turned out a little bit more than we thought, we're not gonna do it. That has repercussions,
No,
long-term repercussions for the people that are bidding. Because next time we want to go out and do something, they're gonna say, yeah, remember what they did last time? I don't think I'm gonna waste my time. It's just the real world.
okay, something to think about. Last chance for any other questions or comments on this topic.
One quick comment is that the summary sheet is wonderful. It's what I was looking for in terms of putting everything in one place and an explanation. I think it'd be great if it could be incorporated into the report some way as an exhibit or whatever, but it's.
Yeah, very nice.
All right, I'd like to thank Jim and I for being here tonight.
I'd like to have Jim and I just talk about 7th Street where we're at on that.
Okay,
And that is another cost that we have to consider.
For 7th Street, we have looked at the different complaints and concerns in the area. Right now, we have contacted several marine construction companies, at least 7 of them, I think, between you and I, Kyle. We have only gotten feedback and a cost estimate from one of them, and it was around $50 plus $1,000 just to install the
51.
coffer dam. Our concern and what we, is kind of like the situation with the pump, like we get these cost estimate that is just installed the coffer dam and is to have a look at the seawall and how the check valve was installed and the condition that is at. But we want to also be prepared to what can be found at the seawall. Is this gonna be just a simple patch that will just require like reinstalling the check valve and putting it back? Or is this something that is gonna have to be more involved to fix the issue and it's gonna have a larger cost, not just the coffer dam? So right now we have contacted the different contractors and also agencies because permitting is gonna need to be submitted for this, even though it's a maintenance, we have to go through the corps, we have to go through the water management district. So we are trying to get a big picture for the city to see what the alternatives are to find a solution for the problem right now. But that's where we stand. We're still trying to gather the data to make sure, like, on the low end or the high end, how is this gonna look?
How does this relate to a timeline for repairs?
So again, this is another thing that people want done. I got somebody who's willing to put in a dam that we can, install and be able to get in there, dry it out and do repair work. My hope was that we get at least one more that I could compare to, but I have sent him an email today, because we were preparing for this meeting. It's we're getting to the point, what can we do to get another, or do we want to take action on what we have and get it fixed?
Can I see what?
Yeah.
We've got it.
That's all I got right now. I just one copy because it's all.
So they're a seawall company.
Yeah, they actually broke off from the Seawall Company into doing more of this type of work for people.
So that they're gonna install a temporary seawall to kind of dam it so you can do the repair and then remove the temporary.
Right, they're gonna set it up so they can dry out in front of it and in the pipe so we can get in there. That's what I wasn't able to do.
And was that a bid process?
No. No, and for time, we were just trying to get estimates and act on them with the emergency purchasing procedures.
Well, I will say that to me is more important than the pump is, for sure. The pump is also very important, but we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what it's actually going to cost, and we don't actually know how we're going to fund it yet. So some big conversations in work sessions to figure out how to make both happen. This one for sure. It's gotta happen.
To fix it.
Yeah.
Is it inappropriate for us
any of us, if we have contacts with seawall companies, to have them call you?
Please have them call
I
me.
think
I'll tell
that'd be
them.
helpful. People that are working in the neighborhood, maybe, they're already here.
Is it, is the seawall itself damaged?
No,
Okay, you're just talking about building a temporary seawall. Okay,
Dam the area off,
yeah,
dry it out.
yeah. I wonder what that would look like. Is it concrete?
so they would be sliding in the pilings, like the probably steel ones, 3 or 4,
Okay.
and they'd wet it real
And then
tight.
seal it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm confused. What is the problem with the seawall and how much would it cost?
It's not the seawall, it's the problem, it's the valve, but I can't do anything with the valve. Because I can't get the water out dry enough to.
It's too low.
It
It's
sits
too low
in
and
the water.
it's way too low and it's,
Is
yeah,
it-
and it's not removable is the problem.
It's set in the concrete.
You just put another one in?
There's different options. We could use a different type of valve. We could install a new one. We might, if we had to, we might even be able to get the old one out and redo it. But we gotta get in there.
And to do that,
Fix it.
they need to do that first.
They just have to hold the water back.
Yeah, you have to dam it up and then drain it and dry it out. And now you can jump over into the area behind the seawall so you can actually work on it.
So is this part of the whole project for the stormwater improvement?
No, this isn't a valve that's not working because of the way it was installed. And we've been trying to work with it to get it corrected, but the amount of water that's coming in, I can't clear it out to dry, to even see what's going on.
So was this another defective installation?
I wouldn't call it a defective installation. It seemed like it was working originally, but it's not. And we noticed that the water, not like it coming right past the valve, but it is infiltrating around the valve and the water, the tide is coming up. It's slower, but it's not working correctly.
Yeah, let me stop everyone for, are we finished with Gemini?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, they're involved.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not keeping them here any longer than they need to
Sorry.
be. Stay. Based on this weather, I don't blame them. They definitely want to stay. Okay, continue.
So when it was a pipe that was not in the plans of the original seawall. Okay, so there was one, but there was one outfall included and one wasn't. So they discovered the outfall. So Rube Clarkson, who does the design, accepted the change order to install the valve into the outfall that wasn't on the plans. And then he did do that in a manner of that he installs these valves or has done. The contractor was working on it in Tampa. And it, Rube approved of it. He put it in, it seemed like it was working, seawall was finished. And then originally I thought, okay, we're having a maintenance problem with this valve because we're noticing the water coming up. And then as we looked at it and the guys got on in there and cleaned it, and then I started investigating. I was like, I don't think it's actually the valve. I think it's getting around. And this is what we've been working on since. The original valve went in probably 2023 early.
2023 is when it was. Is this another potential liability issue?
Yeah, I don't know the facts, and so the bottom line is that we'd have to determine whether there was any negligence on the part of the installer or not, but it all depends on the specification that we provided the installer, what we were trying to accomplish, and whether he followed the specs that we gave him and installed it and still doesn't work correctly, but he's done his job because he's done it per the specs. I don't know all the details, but there could be some exposure. I just don't know all the facts yet, so.
But again, I just don't want to walk away from potential claims and just eat it because we're nice people. These are big numbers potentially. And if it was not properly sealed and now is leaking, that is something we need to look at.
Right, but I think because it was a change order and the engineer signed off on it without the way he did it, I don't think there's any recourse.
Oh, who signed off on it?
Rube Clarkson,
I'm sorry, who's
he's a big time, he's been around for a while, like
engineer?
engineer, civil engineer.
Engineer.
Our person signed off on it.
The contract engineer, yes.
Okay.
So the design and the engineering was all done prior to me taking over as city manager. Lynn set it up, so I inherited the project. The outfall was missing and we had a change order to install the valve. Room signed off on it. When I saw how he did the valve, I was like, that's not how I would have done it. I wouldn't have done it at all. I called the manufacturer at the time, explained the situation. He kind of gave me some scenarios that we could do if we ever had to get a new valve in there. So I was like, okay, because it had already been set. And then we thought it was working. Like I said, we noticed it. I got one of the residents told me it was probably, I don't know, so many months after, and then we started investigating and then we're realizing, okay, this is not working correctly.
But it was to our specifications. He designed it,
The contract, he had a change order and the engineer who was working the project approved it.
And it's may not be the check valve's fault or the installation's fault. It may be just that it's crudted up from being low in the water. Is that right? Sand and silt and.
I just think the way it was installed is not working to its full effect, and we need to get in there to change it.
Okay.
And can I just add that, these check valves, all of this, our city is built too low. It's all built in the 50s. All of this drainage was too low. It's the way it is. We're never gonna fix the problem. No matter what we do, we're just putting a Band-Aid on all of it. So I want everyone to be mindful of that we can't fix this problem unless we elevate the land. And we're not elevating the land, we're not elevating all the houses. So it's gonna be a problem that will never be fixed. All we can do is try to eliminate some of the potential flooding, but this will never be fixed as long as the streets continue at the elevations they're at. Stormwater pipes are at the elevation they're at. We can't change any of that.
Well, I disagree with some of that because when we redid these streets before I was on council, we knew the elevations were wrong and we could have raised the elevation discharge on a lot of these streets, especially like mine and hers. All right.
How do you raise the elevation of the street?
You could have raised the elevation of the pipe. The pipes were lower than they needed to be, is what I'm saying. So.
But you're still you're coming on the street, though.
No, you would have had the end discharge pipe that would have been elevated.
The outfall would have been higher.
Outflow, that could have been elevated, it could have been higher, and you wouldn't have had that water coming back. You could have raised that up probably about 3 inches, which is a lot. Because right now, we're experiencing -2 tide right now. And I just want to explain to council, I asked her for the internet because I didn't have my phone with me. But
Right.
if we had,
Can you pull your microphone?
but if
closer?
we had this storm right now, okay, at 10:30 this morning, when the tide was 3.5 feet, you would have had problems, I would have had problems, and you would have had problems. All right, now you're not gonna have problems because it's flowing, but if we would have put, and the old city manager said on my street, I'll just use my street for particular, oh, Frank, we would have had to go through that person's yard and raise the pipe up. Well, we should have done that, okay, a lot less cost, okay, but we didn't do it. We just connected the old system that was built, like you said, in the 50s, that never worked. And we continue doing things that don't work. And that's why I was objecting to the $2.4 million bond without having some success. And I agree with you, Kim, that this was a trial project for 9th Street. And I'm not against it, okay? I'm not against it at all. I would vote for it tomorrow morning, right now, because the mayor gave his blessing on it. And something has to be tried. We just can't sit there and just say, well, it's been like this for 50 years, so it's going to be like this for 50 more years. That's not the way things work today. We're paying these people probably not enough, okay? I don't think anybody gets paid enough, but what I'm saying is, you've given us a great presentation. You've given us solutions. You're not God, all right? You don't know what's going to work. We don't know if we're going to get a 99-inch rainstorm, but.
Like right now.
But what I'm saying is we can work these problems out, I believe. I just wanted to let you know why I was talking to the secretary. I don't want to get you in trouble. Yeah.
Kyle, you have any other comments?
I think that's all covered with Gemini and pumps, valves and
All right.
drainage.
Is everybody satisfied with the outcome of this conversation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think you can leave, but I don't know if you want to. You're going to hang out as long as you'd like. I always. Yeah. All right. Does anyone need a break? Yes. No, yes, no. Okay.
I just have one more thing in general business.
What's that?
I just have one more thing for general business.
Okay, well, let's hear it.
Okay, so, since people are redoing their yards for, hurricane damage, we're seeing a lot of people just putting in artificial turf in the front yard area. We have not violated them yet. But before I start issuing violations for people to just put in fresh turf, I just wanted to make sure it was 2022 when we instituted like allowing artificial turf. I don't know, I wasn't part of the code review of that time and how those decisions were made and why we, chose only so much allowed in the front and with certain screening. And so I just wanted to bring it up if we want to allow more artificial turf, it's something to consider before, have to go and start having these people remove turf they just put in without your permission to.
What's the current code say? Do we have a copy of it?
You're not supposed to see it at all. It's supposed to be screened, size of backyard. In the front yard,
It could be done in the front yard. It was just a certain percentage.
4 inches of blocks, like paver blocks, is the maximum you can have, and it's a percentage total.
Percentage. Yeah.
But you can't have any more than that. You can't, if it's not in between paver blocks at 4 inches, then it can't be in the front and visible.
I think you're interpreting that incorrectly because it was a percentage of. And I.
We discussed that.
We did
And I
discuss.
can't remember.
I think we even got down in the weeds regarding the quality.
No, we got down to the color because we didn't want people doing like a rainbow front yard and everything like that.
right.
So
I
I can't remember the percentage or where.
Man,
regardless of the
I'm coming.
actual specs, if it violates our code, I think we need to absolutely enforce it. And I
Yeah.
think the fact that we have it in our ordinance and permitting it at all is really unfortunate. Because as we're talking about water problems,
Right.
it creates more water problems.
Well, it's
It-
supposed to have a drainage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
And we know that,
look, I'm not disagreeing with you. That's why, stadium turf has to be lifted every 5 years because it doesn't.
Exactly.
It gets clogged.
Yeah.
Okay, just like this, it gets clogged.
yeah, and instead, we should be promoting things like natural
No, I'm not-
vegetation that will help
I'm not
hold
arguing.
the water and not create more runoff.
I'm in your court.
I agree with you. If we put it in the ordinance,
Then
then
yes, we should be
we spent a
enforcing
lot
it.
of time talking about that. Wasn't
To
like 10
do it
minutes.
now because people are spending money and we don't want them to spend money, in the ways they shouldn't or shouldn't have to. And we're gonna lose control of it too if we don't. I think this is a real serious issue.
I haven't actually, I haven't noticed it personally, but then I'm sure it's the case that they're seeing it. I don't know why people are doing it.
Are you at 94.6?
Because, yeah, they lost all their grass.
I've resodded my yard 3 times in 11 years.
I resided 3 times and I don't want to do it again. I want to look at
Yeah.
alternatives that work, that's help support the environment, that makes sense for here.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have yards that look like the ones we had in the Midwest. It just doesn't make sense. And I have
You have St. Augustine, don't you?
yes. And it's pretty much dead everywhere.
A lot of my neighbors came back. My problem was that they used my yard as a dumping area. Because I had more stuff in there every night.
A lot about
And then
that.
they took a Bobcat and pushed
Okay.
my sprinklers and the whole yard into the street.
Front, rear, and side yards,
but
not to exceed 50% of the
total
My
lot
backyard had a spot about this big where crabgrass somehow got in. Something happened and crabgrass came in and I kept asking the lawn guy, should we replace that? So and we didn't, and now it's almost the entire backyard.
Wow.
Just,
The crabgrass took over.
yeah.
What's the verdict, guys?
Still looking.
See, 50% of the total area
Not to exceed 50% of the total lot area.
using the
Yeah.
paper blocks framing.
That's front and back.
So if you did your whole back and that
Just says
happened to be
in
50% of your.
So-
lot
You don't think
dimensions,
that-
Done.
Is that so vague?
Is it allowed in any front yard areas or any areas visible to public right away, whether it's the rear or side of the yard, unless it's placed between paper
You know,
blocks, similar items in.
your house takes up-
Artificial turf does not exceed 40 feet, provided that the synthetic
60%
turf does not
of your
exceed
lot.
50% of the
I think.
total area of paper blocks. I mean, it sounds like it only can be there. Yeah.
It's that, it still goes back to.
Yeah,
the
right,
50%.
somebody could.
The way I read that is the front yard, 50% can be paper blocks, 50% can be turf.
It'd be straight turf.
Yeah,
Yeah, but does that include the house too?
yeah, it's 50% of the,
Of just the lot of the grass or the entire lot?
area minus the,
Maybe we should just.
Footprint.
Does it say that?
Yeah.
It does
Straight
say.
Trask, look at the
Yeah.
code.
Artificial turf, synthetic grass shall not be allowed in any front yard areas or in any area visible from the public right of way, regardless of whether it is in the rear or side yard, unless it is placed in between paper blocks or similar items in a manner where the area for the artificial turf does not exceed 4 inches in width, provided that the synthetic turf area does not exceed 50% of the total area using the paver block. Screening as approved by the building official may be used in order to comply with the visibility requirement. Further, any turf, synthetic grass placed in between paver blocks shall not count toward the 50% maximum amount allowed. No artificial turf shall be installed in the public right of way. That's the conflict, is that right?
Well, we're just, it's unclear if you can have it visible from the
I
public.
remember we
right of way.
had
That's
a
just
pretty
the
easy
turf
discussion about
blocks.
the side
they're
yard.
saying right away.
The
That's
right of way, which is,
I do. House.
But he says
in some places 10 feet, yeah, 10 feet from the street, so.
That's where a lot.
you're saying it can't be visible.
Well, no, it's,
We just-
it can be visible, but it has to have a boundary around it. So paver blocks.
Yeah. If you. Which it all does, because that's the only way you can secure it down. Right, because they have the, yeah, they're all.
Paper box that would not more than 4 inches, 4 feet, something like that.
It-
What was it?
It's the right of way is the problem. And the reason why that is because if, say, your water main breaks and they have to come out and they have to go through that artificial turf to get in the ground.
But your question really, Kyle, was,
Is it
Well,
allowed?
there's definitely a violation either way of the interpretation.
right,
But I wanted to find out if we want to have some more lenience with our code because we're reviewing our code, or do we want me to just get these people right now and get their.
I think we've got to
turf out?
get a good interpretation of it, because I think we all have a different,
Yeah, I agree.
a
With the
different
pushback.
opinion of what it says.
And I remember having this conversation the last time we did code review
I hear you.
and I was a little bit dumber after the end of it, so.
And there were people that were putting it down in their front yards that the previous city manager stopped them after they paid for it already. It was a big mess, so, but I wasn't involved.
Grandfathered in, there's supposed to be 10
There's
years,
a
it's supposed to
couple.
come up.
Yeah, and there's a couple of them that had it in place and they got grandfathered in
Mm.
after the fact, so there's a lot going on with artificial turf before even the storms.
Yeah, I
Shall
understand.
you speak?
Are
Doug?
we interpreting it correctly or?
So the general language is qualified by the specific language. So the general language allows it to be in the front yard, but it specifically has to comply with the front yard requirements. And that's the 4-inch the turf does not exceed 4 inches in width. So the answer to your question is not allowed free for all in the front yard. It's only allowed in those small areas that it specifies. And that is, artificial turf shall not be allowed in any front yard area or in any area visible from the public right of way, regardless of whether it's in the rear or side yard, unless it's placed between paver blocks or similar items in a manner where the area for the artificial turf does not exceed 4 inches in width.
So people put like the stripes in their driveway.
At the
with
end of
grass.
that,
Oh, it continues
Paragraph.
on, but that was the important portion of it. So
because I think it conflicts with the next.
provided that the synthetic turf area does not exceed 50% of total area of the paver blocks. So if you have 100 square feet of paver blocks, you can't have more than 50% of that or 50 square feet of grass. So it's not the front yard, it's the area where the artificial turf meets that paver block. So you're not allowed to have a front yard full of artificial grass.
It seems anyone who's in violation, it's probably blatantly obvious. And right now, it's our city code. So my thoughts have always been whatever the code is, we should adhere to it until we change the code. So
I think there's some misconception though, because, and I'll just tell you from my street, there was someone who was grandfathered in, one of the first people that put it down. Who was it was a new build, got CO, no one questioned them when they installed it. Then it later came up a couple doors down, someone was having it installed.
they wanted it too.
And they found out after paying for it that they could not have it installed.
Right.
And so it became an issue. It was relayed that it was now allowed. The people that were grandfathered in it was allowed, what they did was allowed, and so I think a couple other people on my street have done it. And so I don't, I would make sure that we're clear on what that says. I mean, I'm gonna study it when I get home and make sure, but I mean, I think that the interpretation of what was relayed to them from previous city manager was it's now allowed in the front yard.
Well,
Not saying it's right.
whenever a home's flooded, many people decided they're putting tile down instead of hardwoods.
Right.
And I think that what we're seeing the equivalent of that in people's yards now.
Right.
So I don't want my grass to ever die again, and I don't care how weird it looks. So that's probably what's happening.
We have a lot of people that are moving in too. I mean, they just don't understand any of these codes. I mean, I was talking to Kyle before the meeting, these are new homeowners, bought these houses cheap, when they got flooded out, and they think they can just do this and that and whatever.
Yeah.
All right. There's a break and there's almost.
This is the end of it. It said it was going to stop around this time. So we just need to review the code, get your interpretation on it, and make sure that whatever it is that the city is not in some weird situation to where people can come back on us. And then the next meeting during the city manager's comments, just let us know what you found out, and we'll continue this conversation. I had something that I wanted to discuss while we're discussing funding and budgets and things like that. I want to caution everyone that there's a big possibility that our millage rate could be eliminated. And then what do we do? What do we do? You're aware of that this is going on, that DeSantis is pushing hard to eliminate property taxes, right?
Oh,
Just on the outskirts of it, so
What's that?
just on the outskirts of the conversation.
Okay, well, I went to his press conference today at Island Way, and he was talking about it for a long time. But it seemed to me that what he was really talking about was people that have the homestead exemption senior citizens and families with children. Well, who's left?
Yeah, it's like it's everybody.
Let's just worry about the seniors.
Yeah, you go.
Sounds to me like the only people that could get whacked with property taxes would be people that have a home in Bel Air Beach as their secondary home. What he didn't offer us while he was talking was, well, how do you replace that revenue?
Yeah.
That's what, that was gonna be my question. We didn't talk about that at all.
No, we don't have that yet. And so one of the things that that makes Florida a great place to live is that we don't have any income tax. And that's because of tourism. And the same goes with these capital projects and all this advertising that that Pinellas County does is because of TDT tax, the bed tax that they collect for every short-term rental, hotel, you name it. If it's something where you lay your head down and pay money to be there, they collect a tax on it. Well, they're also talking about they're trying to attack that and do away with that and make it to where either you can't do that or you can't spend the money for what it was intended for. It's still very unclear, but it sounds to me like this is one of those topics that DeSantis wants this done and he's going to figure out how to make it happen. And he's working very closely with Ed Hooper and Nick DeSiegel. So just want to caution everyone, we're looking at budgeting and we're talking about spending a lot of money on our infrastructure. And this money may not be here in a year or two. If I don't know what the solution is, but
We're going to get dinged next year on property values, bad, I think. You know,
or what?
on our property values. I mean, we always work a year behind, but I mean, I think you're going to see like another 2008 scenario where I don't know what happened. I didn't live here in 2008 with Bel Air Beach, but
It happened there
property
in
values go from-
2008.
Yeah, boom, you know, it just dropped 50% here.
Yeah.
But we have to learn from that lesson, right?
Yeah, I understand that, but I mean, I wasn't here, so I don't know how you budgeted.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
yeah.
Yeah. But we really took a beating then.
Yeah. Well, it's something we need to be very cautious while we're planning our budget is whatever we've got, we don't need to wipe it out. We need to be very, very careful until we see how all this shakes out, because it could be that whatever's left is we've got to figure out how to stretch it out for a few years until there's a solution, you know?
Well, I think we ought to address the stormwater tax. I don't think anyone would be against raising that, you know, some way, somehow, to bring in revenue for that would pay for the pumps and or help pay for it.
Well, under normal circumstances, I'd say, well, you need to have a conversation with Councilmember Shirley because she was instrumental in making that happen.
Right.
But you can't.
I can't hear it.
Yeah, that thought process was everyone would participate in it. If we're only working on one street, that one street might have to
Yeah.
get together and figure out how to fund it.
So did anybody ask that question when the governor was speaking regarding pulling that away? What are you gonna back that with?
No, not really. No.
Thought you would have jumped on the table.
No, I'm not gonna jump up and ask questions. Yeah.
Because my assumption is they're gonna go after commercial properties and that deeply affects me
Right.
and my tenants.
Yeah.
And here we have no commercial
Right.
property. So then it allows nothing for Bel Air Beach.
He was actually here today for new legislation on condos and condo associations is what he was, for. And he signed two bills that basically went after condo associations and what rules they have to follow now. And it sounded pretty good, but I wasn't going to get up there and get my picture taken with him signing that thing. So Yeah. So, that was really all I had, was I just wanted to bring that up, that, yeah, it's real. And our only source of income is our millage rate.
Wow.
So,
Well, we can move out there. There's now.
Still be some,
Six
you're
out there.
saying, but not very much.
what's that?
There would still be some people paying property tax, but not very much.
Don't know. I
Yeah.
really don't know yet. It's,
We can look at the numbers, try to figure out where we'll be at
okay.
if those disappear. We do get a large, most of our money comes in from the condominium out of state owners.
Okay.
Very high taxes. There's a lot of units.
Account on what the percentage
I
is.
mean, you can go on the tax appraiser and export, and be able to figure it out. I've
Is
done
it in our
before.
budget numbers or is that, it doesn't tell us who's homestead, like it doesn't give us a list of
Not
these
our
are
budget.
homestead?
It
budget.
kind of changes ongoing, but we can pull it out.
The way he stated it, you didn't have to
Remember that.
be all of those things, just one of them, like a senior
Well, they were just
example.
giving these examples of these poor people that live on the beach and have to pay property taxes. It just didn't happen. But it was really for everyone in the entire state, you
Yeah.
know, but, there's very little sympathy for people that live in Bel Air Beach.
You're thinking the widow inland who's been in her house for 50 years and is getting priced out of the market because her taxes are going up, you know,
Right.
and insurance and things. I mean, it sounds like a great idea, but it's just hard to make it happen.
Well, and, you know, there has to be a solution. There has to be some way that we can still keep the city running.
There has to be another revenue source.
There has to be another revenue source.
So I was thinking maybe putting buoys out there and renting the buoys out to all those boats that are.
Like a bridge toll.
That's right. Rich told me.
All right, any other general business? It looks like the rain has stopped. Would you guys like to go home?
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you want to talk about the?
Yes, that was the other thing. I'm glad you brought that up. All right, Tom is having, he just doesn't want to work with us. I don't know what his problem is. Let me see if I can find it. You gave me. I knew there was something. Thank you for reminding me. Tom.
So I would really love to attend all of your meetings. But when I took on the position, you know, I advised the council that, you know, one of the meetings I can't attend, and I had suggested or asked if we could change a meeting date. And so I've given the mayor some nights that I'm available, and maybe we can just throw it out there to think about, and hopefully something will work. And Mayor, you've got the list there.
I do. So just to make it a very quick conversation, what, is anyone committed to something else on Thursday nights?
Thursday nights are bad for me.
Every Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay, there's always one. All right, so,
It's my golf league.
okay.
So we're saying that the first Monday of the month.
No. The council meeting is fine. What about
Okay.
the last Monday of every month?
For workshops?
So a workshop the week before the regular meeting.
I'm pretty
I
flexible.
mean, right now, it's going, we're having a workshop every week, but I'm trying to find some flexibility here to make it work to where we have the same attorney at all of our meetings. And so what Tom has said is he's available on every Thursday except for the first one, and he's available on the first Monday and the fourth Monday. Those are, which we already have them for the first one. So do we move the one a month work session to the fourth Monday? And so that way we have a work session, and then we're fresh a week later with the thoughts that we discussed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
How about you?
That works for me. That would be the fourth.
It would be the
no matter
fourth.
What?
Yeah, now what if there's only 3 Mondays? Then what do we do?
Should always be.
There's always.
There's
Oh,
always.
I'm just kidding.
So if we
Just checking the
in the
calendar.
session, and we need to get it on the agenda. And it needs to be out, I mean, will we
Oh,
have enough
timing.
time for?
Right now, the way it's going on, agendas are being released as late as 2 or 3 days before our meeting. Is that correct? We're going all the way to Friday sometimes. So
It has to be advertised, like if we're gonna vote on something,
Yeah.
we decide on, like, we're meeting tonight, we're gonna have a meeting next Monday, and we decide we're gonna put something on the agenda that has to be voted
Got
on.
a 10 days.
Does that give us enough time to advertise?
I think it's reasonable is what it is. It's a reasonable amount of time.
So if you're gonna be adopting an ordinance, you adopt it, you notice it 10 days prior to the adoption, which would be the second reading. So you always know a month in advance, and if it's an ordinance, if it's something else, is there something else you're thinking about?
I don't know, I'm just saying, just making sure that we have enough
Just
time
handcuff us.
to.
So a resolution is not bound to the same rules. And so an ordinance, according to what Tom just said, is that it's the second reading. And if we've already done it once, we know a month in advance and it would be on the agenda. So I,
Just might delay something, that if it has to go through 2 readings, and maybe
right.
it's maybe we talk about it tonight before we put it on the
For the
agenda
first
for Monday for the first reading, and
Just have to be advertised. Right.
okay, perfect.
Just
So,
a second.
It's just the second reading.
Okay, and then the notice is the 10 days you were referring to, that's publication, is that correct? Okay, so you're still good. Okay, all right, well, I like that. If everybody's satisfied with the first Monday for regular meetings, which it's in our charter, and then the fourth Monday for work sessions, unless we have bonus work sessions, and then we may have to get somebody to fill in. Which you've done a great job, and we've had good success so far.
The only thing I would ask is that we make accommodations for remote attendance so that we've got good, clean lines and people can
Yeah,
participate.
I don't know what was happening tonight, but I've heard, it may be something to do with the route of that. That microphone may be on a different channel that's not mic'd over to the, we need to get our guy to take a look at it.
But you moved that other microphone over there, right? That was sitting in the
I don't think
corner.
it didn't work.
Oh, it didn't work at all?
You had a problem once when you were
When I was remote?
coming in from a hotel room or something, you were traveling. I had trouble the one time I tried it.
I think what was going on tonight was it was the tone, the pitch of her voice.
Voice, because she has the accent, it's it's in and out.
Yes.
But once you put the phone next to her, it was fine. But then I noticed trailing off when any of us are talking. There
Well,
was
that's
trail.
because we all insist on
Yeah.
talking way back here.
But I don't know, I know we had talked about once, do the microphones need to be updated? Cause these are old, was that done?
When Encore came and redid everything, they did as best they possibly could, but they did say there was gonna be it wasn't gonna be great. It was gonna be as best they could make it, and they changed these mics, so they thought they were gonna be better mics for it. They dialed in the mixer as best they could. They stuck with the gooseneck up there because they thought it was a better mic for that, but outside of a major overhaul, I don't
No.
think there's gonna be a great improvement.
These mics work great, but I mean, where I've got it right now, that's where everyone needs to keep their microphone now, because it's the only way. And I've had so many complaints from residents, all 3 of them that tune in, that they can't hear very
Hey,
well.
before you got involved with Lynn, the microphone system calling, you couldn't hear nothing. I mean, this is a million times better that we got right now when you redid our whole system. So,
Well, I didn't do it, but
well,
I was, it was a combined effort.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, Kyle, do you have anything else?
Is all.
Okay, everybody want to go home? Yep. All right, well, good night.
Good.